boop. Now we are recording.
We are recording. It's gone red, even though we think it should be green.
I know, such a confusing user experience.
Mm.
But how's your mental well-being been lately?
Yeah, good.
It's a bit of an awkward question, right? How do people... You can't just go around asking people how their mental well-being is, right?
No.
It's not kosher. Maybe in Germany, where people are direct. Is that...
Like blunt.
Yeah.
How is your mental health?
Yeah, tell it to me straight. But yeah, definitely not in the more low context setting of our culture here in Australia. You can't... We want to know how people are doing. We want to know how our colleagues and friends are feeling, but, you know, how do you talk about it, especially at work?
Well, it has been a big topic on asking for a friend in the past. And so this episode of the show is all around how do I talk about my mental well-being at work. And it is tough. It is, I mean, it's tough at home, to be honest.
It's tough with your friends,
let
even.
alone at work. And as much as I know that as much of the work that I try and do in this space, I'm still actually a bit crap at it in my personal life as well.
But, you know, it's not all your fault, Andy. I think it's two-sided, right? Like being hard to talk about it for one, but also people aren't trained to receive it as well. So, you know, you have to be able to do both, and we both have to know how to receive it when someone is telling us of struggles, because that sometimes then can close the door and make us not want to talk about it.
And think about, can they receive it?
Can they receive
right?
it?
Like, yeah, I think that's a really good point. And actually, it's an amazing segue, as if... Oof.
Did we prepare? No.
Amazing segue into a story I was going to share, actually, around this first question. So, once a month, Asking for a Friend is an event that Never Not Creative puts on. We bring a industry leader and a psychologist together, and we get lots of questions around this topic in particular, and anyone can ask for a friend. And the question we're going to start with today is like, how do I let my team know that I'm stressed or not coping with the current workload and still remain a good leader that they respect? And there's some really good stuff in this, but I thought I might start with a little bit of a story of when I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. This is a long time ago, wow, I'm old, 2014. I'd been to see a therapist, and we're talking 2014 as well, and so it's still a bit taboo back then.
Yeah.
I seem to have these moments in my life where I met my wife on online dating.
Amazing. That's
in 2005.
Wow, you
That's
guys were
like
pioneers.
Axe murderer territory, you know, like don't meet people online. And I actually only told my mum, I think, in my wedding speech. So I was definitely struggling. At this time, I'd not long started an agency with a few other people. And I'd been diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And I was also asked to give a talk at Creative Mornings. I love Creative Mornings. Such a great kind of network of events all over the world. But the format for Creative Mornings is that you get given a theme, and it's a global theme. And the theme that month that I was given was risk. And I thought, what a great idea. Nothing more risky than going to talk about this diagnosis of my mental health that I just had. And it was also my way of like kind of dealing with it, turn it into a project, right? It's a brief, it's easier, put it into keynotes, and suddenly it's manageable.
Yes.
And
less scary.
But what I found is just like what the reaction was like. So I gave this big talk, and lots of people came up to me afterwards and said, thanks for talking about that, like thanks for sharing.
Oh, wonderful.
And I've been feeling something like that myself. But at the same time, I'd say there is as many, if not more, that never mentioned it again. Wow. People that I would see every single day. And that led to like quite a bit of regret around going, hey, I've opened up about my mental health. Maybe I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And I think it's just one of those things. So now I think about that of like putting it into context of I spent weeks preparing a deck and a presentation. Like, let's just take this back into agency mode or work mode, right? Like, when you've been thinking about something for weeks and weeks and you've been working on it and you've got to try and get it into a 1 hour presentation and expect everyone to have been on the same journey.
Yeah.
That's what I expected from people. And you can't possibly, right? Like, they haven't been through everything that I've been through. And so I look back now and I go, well, that's a perfectly legitimate response for you to not feel like bringing it up because you haven't been through that as well.
Yeah.
But I think, therefore, it's an interesting element of, like, how do we bring it up when we're talking to people at work? Because are they ready for it? Have they been on the same journey you have? And if you get a response that you're not happy with, whose problem is that? Is that theirs? Is it yours? Society?
It's a delicate dance. Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, I think that kind of links back to what we were talking about earlier, is that you shared something vulnerable and difficult and people weren't able to meet you there or hold that space for you, and therefore it almost created a distance. And I mean, my personal opinion, that it was still worth it because it helped the people that it needed to help. And inevitably, when people do go through struggles, they can then look back onto when you shared your struggles and feel more at ease about it as well. And yeah, I think also there's differences of, depending on who, we're at work, right? We have to be aware of the positions that we're in. Are we in a managerial position? Are we in senior SLT? Are we a junior? And that sets the context of how you can talk to people about it as well. And I think one of the most powerful ones I've seen, I'm going to refer to David Bradford a lot. He is the most amazing man from Telstra, chapter lead, and he has showcased the most powerful, I think, introverted leadership and also vulnerability. I think he had a team meeting to make the team feel more at ease. I think the goal of it was to make sure people felt safe, psychologically safe, and he shared all of his struggles of his fears, his feelings of not being enough at work or not doing enough, or perceived failures, so that the team could all feel safe sharing with them and seeking help if they needed to as well. Whereas if you're a junior, I think you can't necessarily do that, but you might be in a better position to seek help from someone who's a little bit more senior, and then you're already positioned in that way to receive help.
Yeah. And it's also like, you can't spring it on someone,
No.
If you're going to have this conversation, you're going to start talking about it, it's good to just let everyone know that you'd like to talk about that, and then here's the time and place that we're going to talk about it, so that they can prepare.
There's a term for it that Brene Brown uses, which I can't remember, but it's basically like headlighting someone, where you just catch them unawares. You haven't asked, can they take this on at this point?
Yeah, right.
And you overshare, basically.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, so in this question, Nick, whose house we're in,
thank you,
workhouse, talks about, like, what a great opportunity this is for leadership and being human.
Yes.
And being able to kind of turn up and say, hey, I've had a terrible night's sleep, or something's going on with me, so if I behave a little bit strangely today, then please point it out.
I 100% agree that it sounds like a great opportunity for leadership, because I feel I try to be quite vulnerable with my team, and I don't think they think any less of me when that happens. I think I become more human, and that they also understand that there is that safety net, and that, Nick struggles at times, so it's totally fine when I struggle at times, and I can reach out to him and talk to him about it because he's talked to me about it.
Yeah, let me know, and I'll be able to, do something about it.
Call me out on it.
Yeah, and I think that's good, right? Like, that's what you want to see from leaders.
And being more human, I think, I read a story, I think, in Adam Grant's book about Melinda Gates, and basically people perceived her as to be too perfect and was afraid to approach her. And in an exercise, they got her to, in front of the whole company, read out mean tweets about herself. And that just made her immediately more approachable. People really resonated with her a lot more. And, it doesn't have to always be heavy.
Yeah.
It can just be doing something light where you show that you can take yourself not so seriously and just be human, like you said.
Well, I think Brene Brown also said that vulnerability is the first thing we want to see in everybody else, but it's the last thing that we want to give up ourselves.
Totally.
Yeah. Brene, said Brene on the show. Come on, Brene.
I would love that. I mean, if you're listening, Brene, I'm the biggest bad girl.
The next question also kind of plays on this. So I think the first one was around sort of as a leader, how do you do that? But also as an employee, how do you bring this up? And I really like the way, so Sharon Draper is the psychologist in that question, and she talks about you have to kind of question what you want in your life.
I find a lot of people feel so stuck, and I'm not saying it's easy to make change, but it isn't. It's very difficult to make change. I'd encourage people to question themselves of where they are in their life, and do you need this role or this job? Like, how important is it to you? And if you don't need it and you feel you can find another job, then maybe explore your options. I think there's no harm in exploring options. Because this just helps you put in healthy boundaries, and it just shows that you have, agency in your life. But if you need to stay in your job, which is probably a lot of us, I wouldn't encourage this person to no longer go to their manager for help. I would just encourage them to still communicate what they need, but with a shift in their own expectations, maybe. Like I said, I don't really know the context, but it sounds like maybe the manager used to be empathic or more empathic, and then now they're not as empathic anymore. And if that's the case, I guess I would just wonder what could be going on for the manager. A lot of times when people are extremely stressed, they don't have capacity for empathy. I know managers are leaders and they need to manage their own and regulate their own emotions, but I'm just saying it's, it might be something to just also I wonder what's going on for them. But I think the most important thing with regards to this is it's important not to rely on one person to get that empathy. Are there any other people in your team that you're able to ask for help with?
And it's okay to just leave something that's not nice. Absolutely. Or not working. And sometimes you feel like that's not an option because, I don't know, people sometimes might feel like that you're a failure if you give up on something.
Yeah, that you're a quitter. You've quit too soon. But I'm a big believer in that energy never lies. You can rationalize with your head all you want about, it's not enough money, or I need to stick it out, but you can feel it in your body that you are unwell from this interaction, and that gives you full permission to leave something, whether it's work, friendships, relationships.
Yeah, I really like that. She did say also, don't let a manager destroy your life.
Not worth it.
No,
not worth
not
it,
worth
people.
it. But I think for if you're at the beginning of your career, that's hard, isn't it?
Because you don't know.
You don't know.
I know. Yeah. I've been so blessed. I've honestly just had the best managers my entire trajectory. I think I've just been so lucky to be set that particular standard for when I started. But exactly right, when you meet people who've just come into the industry and they're under the wings of someone who's a little bit more tyrannical, they don't know any better, and it's hard to show them that they can just leave.
And I'd like to think it's changing a little bit, but I know I've worked in businesses where we had a policy of it's sink or swim.
Oof, so many sinks.
And that's not if you don't work out, you don't work out, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's okay for us.
But it really
I don't know whether it's okay for them.
confidence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I do not abide by that policy anymore. But it's pretty widespread in the creative industry. You get thrown in, you make it, you don't, off you go. And I don't believe that is the only way to get good work out of people.
Absolutely not. Fear only works so far. You can only get so far with fear, then it crumbles. And it's really, really important if you're in any position as a manager where you're looking or responsible for people to, I know it's a wanky term, but to do the work. You really got to understand yourself. You need to be mentally healthy. Everyone, exercise is really important, but also I think just therapy is really great. We all need someone to talk to. As long as you know yourself and you know what your limits are, how you respond, your triggers, it's really important to have that in place before you start looking after people or having children, or basically passing that on because you haven't dealt with it yourself.
And therapy is not something to go and do when it's too late, right?
No.
It's actually good to do just as a normal practice.
Yes.
And
I liken it to the dentist, you go to the dentist to have a routinely clean.
I've got to hide now. I'm English.
Yeah, it's part of the genetics. It's all good. Beautiful teeth. Don't go to the dentist when your teeth are all rotting, Get it regular. Brush your teeth. Go see them. Get it checked up every 3 to 6 months. I'm not looking at you directly. This is just a general...
Do you know what? I was at an event, actually.
Yeah.
It was in Brisbane, and quite a like a good reputable creative director. She comes up to me and I said, "Oh, you know, hi, how you doing?" She's like, "Oh, we've met before actually."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Yeah, I remember your teeth." I'm like,
Oh.
she does come from a family of dentists, so she's
Okay.
what she should know. But moving on,
Mm-hmm.
I did actually, no, not moving on. One thing I really
Yes.
wanted, that I loved about this particular answer, was the difference in what empathy can be and what you want from someone when you do express something around your mental well-being. Like, if you just want to vent, it's okay. Just go, let someone know that that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're just going to go, "Hey, I've had
here
a
for
day. I just want to vent. This has happened.
Don't need help. Don't need advice.
Yeah, I don't need you to fix it."
No.
Also, one of my favourite Modern Family episodes.
Yes,
Do you
with
know
Phil
that?
Dunphy,
Yes.
And all the girls at the spa, like, just listen. You
Yes.
don't have to fix it.
That's
It's
right.
so good.
So good. His wife calls up and she goes, "Oh, I've got stuck in traffic. It's terrible." And he's going, "Well, why didn't you take Freeway 49 and blah, blah." And everyone looks at him and going, Don't
No.
fix it, Phil. You don't need to fix it.
She just wants you to give her support so that she can solve her problems herself.
And it's like, yeah, it's one of the best life lessons I've ever learned is from Modern Family.
For all relationships.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
it's really good. Mm-hmm. And so, but then there will be times when you do want help. And I think the important thing is like, you've got to be very clear on what the ask is of what you want. You can't just come, and I think, and this comes up a lot in asking for a friend, I think this is also don't go to your manager with just a problem.
No.
Right? Go with a potential solution.
Yeah.
The same works with your mental health. No one knows your mental health better than you.
Yeah.
And so if you can go to someone and say, "Hey, look, I'm struggling, or I'm not doing great at the moment, but this is what I need, or this is how I might react when this happens," you're helping them to help you, not
Yeah.
just, "Look, I'm feeling like
Dumping
shit,
it on
deal
them.
with it." Yeah.
Yeah. It's not their job as well. And coming back to what we originally discussed about, are they ready to receive it? Some things that I find really helpful in my interactions is with my bestie, I might be like, "Hey, I'm really struggling right now. Do you have the bandwidth to listen to some of these things and help me offload or figure it out?" And she and I have a good relationship where she can actually say, "Babe, I actually can't right now. I've got too much going on, but can we do it at this time?" Or she'd be like, "Thank you for checking. I do have the bandwidth." You know, like that also helps set up your
good,
interaction, ongoing.
The final question is, it, again, moves on from that as well. Like, how do I bring it up? And I think this is probably similar to something we've covered in a previous episode around you have to be okay with yourself first. Martine talks about that, and that I like, though, what she talks about in this answer is there can be a lot of shame around talking about mental well-being, and until you've been able to deal with that shame yourself, or like remove it and go, "Hey, there's nothing to be shameful of."
It's the shame that you carry about it yourself that stops you from sharing it with others generally. And there's no shame. Would you be shamed about, breaking your finger or no.
Then that's when you can start to talk to other people about it.
Yes.
Or like there's probably specific individuals that can help you get over the shame piece, right?
And again, like having shared language, and we're social creatures. You can't really deal with these problems on your own. And I think back to the energy thing, who do you feel safe with? Who do you feel like you could tell these things to and they're not going to shame you further? And again, with my bestie, we have a little language where we're like, "Babe, I'm going into a shame spiral. Like, it's fucking bad. It's dark, and all the thoughts are fucking intrusive." And she will call straight away, or she'll text something straight away to be like, "It's not real," or something just to help you come out of it. But it's really important to be safe around those people, because there are people that I, over the years, might have, or even me, I haven't been able to hold the space for someone because it's a shame trigger for me. Someone will come to me when I had an eating disorder and talk to me about food disorders, and I'll be like, I'm not the safe person to talk about it. And I think communication is so key for one person to be like, "Hey, I'm so sorry, this is bringing up feelings for me and I can't be there to support you," is just as important as like, "Oh, I'm here to listen."
Yeah, absolutely. And there's this like challenge with that as well. And I think, I can't remember if it was Nicky or Martine that brought it up, around the gap between feeling it versus expressing it,
I love
right?
that.
Like, so
Yeah.
you can feel it, but you have to take the time to kind of reconcile it with yourself, and
Yes.
before you can articulate it in a way that can help you and help someone help you.
Yes, the whole react versus responding, right? Like when you're in the middle of reacting, I generally, as a rule of thumb, try not to touch or talk to anyone until I've like dealt with some of the internal turmoil before then responding.
And
I love that.
there's probably something in how you can bring it up with other people as well who you have noticed. Like, actually, I had a really good conversation the other day with someone I work with, and she came to me and said, sorry, I was a bit grumpy yesterday.
And you were like, confirmed.
And I was like, yeah, you were actually. But I kind of, it was good because I feel like we've got that relationship.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And yeah, because I was trying to like, oh, look at this cool new thing, which is what I'm always doing at bloody work. It's like, cool new thing, we might do this, we might do that. Or here's like a new piece of software or something. Literally anyone who's ever worked for me will be going, and then, but this person's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to come to that meeting, or I don't want to do this. I don't even,
how
no thanks.
deflating.
And I'm like, oh, really? I'm excited by it.
Yeah.
And then we chatted the next day and she goes, you know, I'm grumpy. I do want to try it. And just, we don't know what is going through anyone's head at any one point in time.
It's so true. It's so true. This one time when I was working in London as well, and this girl that I was working with was just all over the shop, and I remember being like, oh my fucking God, like what is going on? Let's get this shit together. And then she finally came to me and said, I'm so sorry, I've been really frazzled. My sister's been diagnosed with cancer for the 3rd time. She's 21. And then we just both burst into tears and hugged. And you just don't know what someone is going through. And if she didn't have the courage to tell me, I would have just been just a bitch. So, you know, I really appreciate.
Yeah, you've been like, oh, geez, you're hard to work with. You're high maintenance. It's like,
I'm so much better.
Yeah.
You know, we just don't know. So
yeah. That's so true. And there's the mental health continuum, which it's perfectly okay to go up and down at any moment on any day. You know, you can be stuck in traffic and feeling like crap, or late into work and missed something vital, and then you feel like shit. But you can also have a high of like, you get just an email from someone and it's made you feel fantastic.
Yeah.
That's all really, really normal, but get stuck on the wrong end of that spectrum for a while, and that's when you start to become, you know, mentally ill.
Yeah.
And I think how you kind of handle that, and your way of then articulating that for people, is a skill that you've got to become comfortable with, right?
You do. It is a skill you have to practice. It is about learning some of these concepts and having a shared language that you build up with your network of friends or colleagues that you trust, and having keywords. Like, again, I have these things with my friends called wobbles or wig outs, and we interpersonally know what that means and what we then need from each other. It's almost like you have to know yourself well enough to write a handbook, of a manual of how to deal with you when you're in the best place or the worst place, and hand it to the people you love.
Yeah.
And they will then help you, and then vice versa, because we're not mind readers, right?
Yeah, yeah. I really like that. Okay, well, look, that's hopefully some things that you can use on, you know, how can you bring up mental health at work. I definitely think it helps to make sure people are prepared for the conversation and that you've let them know. And also that, you know, just because you're talking about mental health doesn't mean that somebody suddenly becomes a therapist and can fix it for you. You kind of got to come with your own solutions.
Yeah.
But I think it's there's a lot of great discussions on the Asking for a Friend page on nevernotcreative.org, so go check that out. I think we can wrap up this episode.
Wrap it up.
I
Love it, with like gift wrap.
Thank you to Streamtime, who's a big sponsor and provider of support for Never Not Creative. Streamtime's project management software for the creative industry helps to create happier, healthier businesses by bringing well-being practices and data in with project management data. Thank you to Paper Moose and their huge microphones. Thank you to Linley, who has edited this episode, and to Fong for everything that she's been doing around Never Not Creative recently, and community management and designing and socials and all that kind of stuff. So we'll be back with another episode next time. Thank you to Rachel. I almost forgot
Thank you,
that.
Andy.
Oh my God.
Don't worry. worry.
Right
I'm in it
across,
with you.
staring at me.
And thank you all for listening as well. We appreciate it.
Oh, yes. We should say things like review, like, subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe.
Don't know.
Linley will help us edit that in.
Great. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. We're just a couple of millennials.